Extra yarn. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabel found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater, and when Annabel was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too, but there was still extra yarn. And when Annabel and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabel. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabel's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone! Annabel, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabel said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out she could, and she did, even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabel still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and for Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone, except for Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabel still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats, and for other animals too. Soon Annabel will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabel made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Things began to change. So in that little town, news spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabel's hand. One day, an archduke, who was never fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabel. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1,000,000. "No, thank you," said Annabel, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2,000,000, he said. Annabel shook her head. "No, thanks." $10,000,000, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabel. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabel's house, and they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Back to his castle. The archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box and he lifted its lid and he looked inside. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." But it turned out she was. The end. Now we're going to make a craft to go along with the book. You'll need some jumbo popsicle sticks and some Sharpies and some yarn. First, let's make a little face of a critter on our popsicle stick. You can do dogs, you could do cats, you could do a bunny, whatever kind of animal you want to make. Don't forget eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. At the bottom, draw some little toes or paws or feet for your animal. You can do whatever kind of animal you want. When you're finished making the faces on your sticks, take your first color of yarn, hold it with one finger around the back of your popsicle stick. Wrap it around your stick 2 or 3 times, overlapping where you first started holding on to that string. When you overlap the string, it will hold that string from coming unraveled. Wrap down the stick as far as you want to go. When you're ready to change colors, just cut off that string and start a new color, overlapping the next color with the previous color to hold the string on so that it doesn't come unraveled. If you're having a hard time holding the 2 strings together, you can tie them together so that they don't come separated. I decided to tie mine because it was very difficult to hold it. I just tied a simple knot and then overlapped my color string on top of it to hide it. You can put as many colors as you want on your animal's stick. When you're done, cut off the string not too far from the stick and use a pencil or the edge of end of your scissors and stick the string inside. Now it looks like your animal's wearing a cute sweater, just like our story Extra Yarn.